Good evening, friends. Let us be still. What if no one ever told you that seek first the kingdom of God is not a hunt through books, teachers, or tomorrows, but a turning right now to the living presence within your own consciousness? In this instant, without striving, a kingdom is here not to be achieved, but to be realized. We do not come to get things, to fix conditions, or to bend life to our will. We come to behold that which is already the substance of all things. As we withdraw attention from the noise of appearances, we discover the secret place where fear dissolves and supply, health, and harmony flow as effects of an inner awareness. Seek not outcomes. Seek the awareness of God as the very activity of your being. Then the added things arrive as shadows follow substance. If this resonates, bless the work. Like the video, comment the symbolic number 111. To affirm your turning within, subscribe and tap the bell. Because in a few moments, we will face the question that changes everything. If the kingdom is already within, what, precisely, are you still seeking? We have been trained to search outward, for better systems, better people, or better tomorrows, and then to call that search spiritual. Yet the Master's injunction points in the opposite direction. Seek is not a command to roam the world of effects. It is an invitation to turn the beam of attention back upon its source. The kingdom is not a prize, not an attainment, not a superiority. The kingdom is the realized presence of God, here within, as the very life and substance of your awareness. It is realized, not acquired because it never was absent. It is discovered in the moment we cease trying to add God to a human agenda and instead awaken to God as the only real agenda. When we look outward, we chase shadows and ask them to behave. We bargain with health, supply, relationships, and reputation as though the screen could rewrite the light. But the kingdom is not on the screen, it is the light itself. To seek, it is to withdraw fascination from appearances and to enter that inner stillness where the invisible becomes more factual to us than the visible. This is why true prayer is listening, not pleading, recognition, not persuasion. We are not trying to get God to do something. We are consenting to be conscious of that which already is. What then is the practical movement? It is the gentle turning within, a pause in which we stop measuring life by effects and let awareness rest in the simple fact God is. One presence, one power, one life, already operative as the activity of our being. We do not outline the form, we acknowledge the source. We do not decorate the dream, we awaken. In that acknowledgement, a shift occurs, fear loosens, because we are no longer standing outside of good, begging entry. We are recognizing ourselves within the household of spiritual sufficiency. This realization is not a mood we manufacture, nor a mantra we hammer into place. It is an unveiling that follows surrender. Be still a moment. Let the breath soften. Lay down the appetite to fix, to hurry, to compare. Notice the stream of suggestions parading as fact, lack age, limitation, discord, and refuse them the dignity of reality. Not by fighting them, but by abiding in that which is untouched by them. In quiet receptivity, the inner word announces itself as peace, as assurance, as a gentle knowing that requires no argument. Then the world begins to reconfigure, not because we forced it, but because consciousness has been illumined. What the added things appear in their right season, as branches naturally leaf when the sap rises. Outer harmony becomes the echo of an inner recognition. You have not acquired the kingdom, you have witnessed it. You have not made God present, you have noticed presence. And in that noticing, you find yourself cared for from within, guided without strain, established in a sufficiency that does not depend on the moods of circumstance. In this awareness, you stop trying to live life and life lives itself as you. Decisions simplify, timing clarifies, and the right doors open without strain. You begin to trust the rhythm of being more than the calculations of intellect, and your practice becomes a quiet returning, many times a day, to that inner altar of stillness. And from here, prayer shifts from saying to hearing. It is not the mind telling the infinite what it needs, but the heart yielding to the infinite as all-sufficiency. In listening prayer, we lay aside our shopping list, our emergency flares, even our clever affirmations, and we offer availability. We become a listening place. Silence is not a vacancy, it is fullness without noise. In that hush, awareness ripens until presence begins to register, sometimes as a warmth, sometimes as a still confidence, often as a quiet that says more than words could say. We are not trying to manufacture holy feelings. We are making room for what already is. Sit, breathe, release agendas. Let the thoughts stream past without grabbing a single branch. If a need presents itself, acknowledge it without dramatizing it, and gently turn again toward the invisible. Here I am. That is enough. In time, the sense of a private self doing the work recedes, and the listening ear awakens. The responsive spirit rarely arrives as sentences, it arrives as awareness, as a subtle rightness that requires no argument, as peace that does not depend on circumstances. From that peace, wise ideas come of themselves, and steps unfold with an ease that surprises the intellect. Many have been taught to batter heaven with words, to convince God of conditions and deadlines. But petition presumes absence, listening presumes presence. Petition attempts to move a power toward us, listening reveals the power as the life we are. If you use statements of truth, let them be tuning forks, not tools. A simple recognition, one presence here, can clear the mental air and then fall silent. Wait. Not a tense waiting, but a restful expectancy. We are witnessing the activity of truth in consciousness, not pushing results through with thought. In this way, prayer ceases to be a crisis technique and becomes a posture of being. Walking, washing dishes, answering a call, you notice the subtle invitation to pause inwardly, to feel for the current and to consent. You may hear an inner no that saves hours or an unpremeditated yes that opens a door. You may find that the urge to justify, to defend, to persuade evaporates before it reaches the tongue. Guidance, supply, healing, these show up as natural companions of realized presence, not as trophies won by spiritual effort. We are careful, therefore, not to turn silence into a lever for things. We honor it as communion and let the added things be the shadows cast by substance. When fear shouts, we do not debate it, we return to listening. When the mind insists on a timetable, we return to listening. When memory parades old injuries, we return to listening. The power is not in our resistance to appearances, but in our non-resistance, in abiding as awareness until the appearance is seen for what it is, a suggestion without spiritual law to support it. In the calm of consent, the storm loses audience and passes. Even correction, when required, arises without heat, said at the right moment in the right tone, because it is not correcting but grace expressing as clarity. Over time, the line between formal meditation and daily life thins. The interval between disturbance and turning dissolves. The prayer of words gives way to the prayer of beholding, to an inner Sabbath that can be known in a crowded room as surely as in a quiet garden, until the heart's habitual posture is simply, "Speak, I am here," and the ear within stays attuned even while the hands are busy, and the very atmosphere around you begins to carry that hush that heals without display. From that hush, a deeper truth stands quietly revealed. God is one presence, one power, never a tool to use. The moment we try to use God to change a person, cure a condition, win a contest, or secure an outcome, we have slipped into the superstition of two powers, a problematic power out there and a stronger power we hope to wield. But the infinite will not be harnessed to personal aims. God is not a force we work, God is the life that works us. In realized oneness, there is nothing outside to conquer and nothing inside to weaponize. There is only the recognition of the one activity being all. Consider how subtle the temptation is. A fear arrives and the mind instantly reaches for a spiritual lever, an affirmation, a verse, a technique, to push the fear away. But pushing grants the fear status. Resistance presumes an opponent. The master taught no dual awareness, judge not, resist not. This is not passivity, it is spiritual clarity. To acknowledge one presence is to remove the stage on which conflict plays. What seems to threaten is not a second power, it is a suggestion without substance, like a shadow seeking to prove itself apart from the light. We do not argue with the shadow. We turn to the light and let the shadow show itself to be only the absence of seeing. Practically, this looks like pausing before reaction. A report comes, a symptom flares, a bill arrives. Do not confer power. Breathe and remember one presence is the life here, the mind here, the law here. Not a presence in me opposing something in the world, but one presence omnipresent, leaving no leftover space for a rival. In that recognition, the heat drains from the moment. The impulse to fix, accuse, plead, or control loses authority because it was borrowing its urgency from a belief in two. With the belief retired, the scene clears, and oftentimes the very step that needs to be taken becomes obvious and simple, free of combativeness. In the world's language, power is leverage, dominance, winning. In spiritual realization, power is being. It requires no display, no proof, no outsized gestures. It shows itself as quiet rightness, as effortless adjustments, as safety that does not swagger, as provision that arrives without fanfare. Whenever we feel the urge to use truth against anything, we can be certain a second power has crept in under the door. Close the door gently, not by scolding yourself, but by returning to beholding. Let truth be what it is, the nature of God revealed as the nature of your life. The great freedom is this: nothing needs to be overpowered. Illusion does not require a stronger illusion, it requires the presence of understanding. Where understanding is, fear fades as naturally as mist under sun. This is why we are counseled to impersonalize appearances. We do not grant them personhood or powerhood. We see through the mask. The mask may still speak for a time, but it speaks to nobody. It has no law to animate it, no life to perpetuate it, once the only power is recognized. Be vigilant, then, not in fighting but in remembering. Do not try to make oneness true in order to get a result. Oneness is true, and the result is that fear's argument cannot find a listener. We are not managers of God. We are witnesses to God. Let the posture be humility. Here am I, available. Use me as your transparency. And as that willingness stabilizes, motives purify, actions simplify, and outcomes cease to carry the burden of proving anything. For the one presence being all becomes the quiet atmosphere in which thoughts, words, and deeds find their natural alignment with the one. From that alignment, seeking ceases to be a chase and becomes a beholding. We are not after objects, events, or changes. We are consenting to awareness of the presence that is the substance of all good. The counsel is precisely seek awareness, and let all these things be added. The adding is the province of grace. Our part is the turning, the resting, the recognition. We look not to results for proof, but to the inward sense of God as the very life here now, and we keep attention there long enough for the magnetism of appearances to loosen its hold. This approach dissolves strain. Instead of outlining forms, this sum of money, that healing by Tuesday, this person acting thus, we acknowledge source, and the forms take care of themselves in right sequence. Supply reveals itself as the outflow of being, often as quiet sufficiency, sometimes as unexpected channels, always as the appropriate portion of the day. When fear about tomorrow's bread intrudes, we return to presence and discover that the only day in which life is lived is now, and in now, provision is not theoretical, it is experienced as right ideas, timely calls, inner nudges that move us without anxiety with health. We do not attempt to force a condition into conformity. We behold the life of God as the only life expressing. In that beholding, fear relaxes its grip, and the body often responds as a servant responds to the calm of a trusted master. Sometimes the added step is rest, sometimes it is a practitioner, a physician, a change of habit. None of it is driven by panic. The step arrives as part of unfoldment because we have placed the emphasis on awareness rather than on effect, on cause rather than on shadow. In relationships, The temptation to fix people fades as we recognize the one presence appearing as all. We become less eager to persuade and more willing to witness the Christ in the midst. Conversations soften. Timing improves. The atmosphere shifts without argument, and what could not be accomplished by force is accomplished by the quiet pressure of realized oneness. The added thing may be reconciliation, clarity to depart, or simply a peace that renders old frictions powerless, but it is never a trophy of personal skill. It is the echo of presence realized work and calling take on the same character. We do not scramble to manufacture outcomes, we attend to the inner go, ahead. Ideas come when needed, doors open, and when they do not, we feel no compulsion to batter them. Compensation assumes its rightful basis, not as reward for strain, but as recognition of value flowing through the transparency you are. To seek awareness first is to put the root in water. Leaves and fruit appear by law, not by worry. This practice returns us again and again to simplicity. A few breaths, an inner turning, a willingness to drop the picture and feel for the presence. But gratitude emerges unforced, not as technique, but as the natural perfume of realized good. We remain alert to the mind's habit of bargaining. If I center myself, then I will get, and let it pass. Getting belongs to the realm of fear, being belongs to the realm of grace. Resting in being, we discover that needs are answered as functions of wholeness, not as favors won by devotion. We do not abdicate action, we sanctify it by origin. Action born of presence carries an ease disproportionate to its effort, and results align without the friction that attends egoic pushing. For the sequence of the day arranges itself around the quiet center, we refuse to leave from that quiet center. A further discipline emerges. We impersonalize appearances and refuse the bait of battling good or evil. The moment a problem takes on a face, a difficult coworker, a stubborn symptom, a news headline, we are tempted to fasten blame or credit to persons and things. But personalization ties us to the seesaw of opposites. The spiritual view dissolves the mask and sees the suggestion itself as impersonal, a claim, not a self, a shadow, not a second power. When the mask is off, there is nothing to fight and no one to fix. There is only the recognition of one presence revealing itself, where the masks seem to be. Watch how quickly the mind says, "What who wronged me? She is the problem. My body is failing. That group is evil," and in the same breath attempts to muster spiritual truth as a weapon. In that instant, pause, loosen the pronouns, let, and shit, and they, drain of charge, acknowledge. Here is a suggestion presenting itself as person or condition, claiming law, continuity, and power. Then return to the fact: one presence, one power, one law. You have not excused misconduct, denied pain, or turned away from responsibility. You have refused to crown an appearance with authority. From this cleaner altitude, whatever action is required arrives unburdened by hatred, fear, or self-righteous heat. Impersonalization breeds clarity. You can set a boundary without making an enemy. You can speak truth without a spear behind it. You can seek medical help or practical assistance without secretly confessing to a second power, because the step is undertaken within the atmosphere of realized oneness. The carnal mind, the belief in life apart from God, thrives on quarrel, for and against, good versus evil. Grace has no opponent. When the field of battle disappears in your awareness, many conflicts evaporate, and those that remain are met with an authority that does not shout, "Apply this to the body." A symptom flares, the old habits rush in. Panic, prognosis, a parade of memories. Labeling the body bad or the conditionable inflates the very image you hope to dispel. Instead, name it correctly. One impersonal claim. Recognize the life of God as the only life here, and be still until peace asserts primacy. From that peace, the next step may be rest, a change in diet, a practitioner, a physician. Because you have not made a god of the symptom or of the remedy, the step is clean, and results are free to unfold as effects of consciousness illumined rather than as trophies of effort. Apply it to relationships. When sharp words fly, See through the costume of personality to the claim that harmony can be severed. Decline the claim. Behold the one presence appearing as all. Often the very heat that demanded a retort dissolves before it reaches the tongue, or a word is given you, simple, apt, without edge, that disarms the moment. No one has been conquered, a false claim has been unmasked, apply it to the world. Headlines beckon you to choose sides within the drama. Choosing sides within the dream strengthens the dream. Standing as awareness of one presence does not make you indifferent, it makes you available. You may still vote, serve, give, build, protect, but the doing issues from love, not from the fever of enmity. The atmosphere you carry is itself an influence, a quiet leaven that lifts without argument. For the weight of personal judgment has been laid down and the lightness of impersonal seeing has taken its place from that lightness. A deeper release becomes natural. The letting go of personal sense, the little me, that claims authorship, ownership, and outcome. Personal sense wants to steer, to measure, to protect its image. It uses truth like a tool and calls it faith. Surrender is not collapse, it is consent. It is the willingness to be a transparency through which presence acts without the interference of fear, pride, or private agenda. Where personal sense strains, grace flows. Where personal sense calculates, grace reveals. Where personal sense hoards, grace supplies. This surrender is not achieved by willpower. It comes as we become more interested in presence than in performance, more willing to abide than to impress. The personal I gives itself assignments. Fix this, approve that, secure tomorrow, while the deeper I, the I that is God's very selfhood expressed, simply is. To rest as that selfhood is to move from doership to responsiveness, from outlining to beholding, from anxious pushing to an ease that has authority without force. The fruit of this is felt first as relief, the burden of self. Rescue falls away and life begins to arrange itself around a center that does not wobble practically. We cultivate small surrenders many times a day. Before sending the message, before entering the room, before picking up the phone, pause. Release the subtle demand for approval or control. Offer availability, here I am, be my seeing, speaking, doing. Then proceed. Steps born of surrender carry a different quality, clean, apt, timely. They land without residue because they are not driven by vanity or fear. Even when correction is required, it arrives as clarity, not heat. Even when delay is wise, patience is not heavy, because it is not me, patience, but the stillness of presence having its way supply under surrender is recognized as a revelation, not an acquisition. The form may be money, help, a new idea, a change of approach, rest or courage. The essence is always grace fulfilling itself as what is needful for the day. We stop demanding specific channels and let God be God. The impulse to outline numbers and dates loosens in its place. A quiet trust arises that the source knows its own outflow. This does not breed passivity. It births receptivity, which sees opportunities when they appear, acts without strain, and lets non-essentials fall away so that what is essential can be tended with wholeheartedness. Surrender also purifies motive. We no longer serve to be seen or give to be owed. We give because love presses to expression, and we serve because life wants to serve through us. Where recognition replaces performance as the animating energy of the day. The need to compare diminishes, the scoreboard of successes and failures loses fascination. We begin to notice how often the personal self used urgency to justify unwise choices. In the atmosphere of surrender, timing clarifies, and what is ours to do comes with an inward rightness that requires no pep talk. When personal sense retreats, identity clarifies. We discover we were never the anxious manager of events, but the awareness in which God's activity unfolds. The body, relieved of the lash, responds to peace. Relationships, freed from the demand to validate a self-image, breathe. Work becomes the place where presence plays at form. Guidance becomes subtle but steady, an inner leaning, a check, a lift. And when appearances contradict, what the old reflex to panic is replaced by the learned habit of yielding, of returning to the felt fact of one presence being all, until the storm spends itself and the necessary word or step emerges of itself,